In the history of philosophy, few figures have dared to challenge social norms as boldly as Diogenes. He not only questioned the values that people pursued, but also turned his own life into a powerful critique of the world around him. Living in extreme simplicity, rejecting material comforts, he used his actions to demonstrate that true freedom does not lie in power or wealth, but in the ability to control oneself and remain unbound by societal standards. Diogenes did not seek fame, nor did he crave recognition from others. He chose a life that many considered eccentric, but for him, it was liberation from the illusions that people imposed upon themselves. He mocked those who pursued wealth, regarded the desire for power as meaningless, and bluntly criticized the values that society revered. It was precisely this uncompromising frankness that made him one of the most controversial philosophers in history. Among the many anecdotes about him, the image of Diogenes carrying a lantern in broad daylight searching for an honest man has become a symbol of deep irony. He did not merely criticize hypocrisy but challenged people to look inward and ask themselves whether they were truly living authentically or merely playing roles in a societal performance. He wanted people to abandon illusions, face the truth about themselves, and live as genuinely as possible. Diogenes' philosophy remains relevant in modern society. As the world becomes increasingly driven by materialism, status, and external validation, his ideas serve as a wake-up call, reminding people of the true meaning of freedom. Not everyone can live like Diogenes, but anyone can learn from his spirit of independence, his courage to challenge conventional thinking, and his determination to live an authentic life. I am looking for an honest man. Diogenes was not just a philosopher. He was a symbol of fierce resistance against societal norms. When he walked through the streets with a lantern in broad daylight, declaring that he was looking for an honest man, it was not merely an act of satire but a profound philosophical statement. This declaration reflected his deep disappointment with his contemporary society and raised an eternal question about human nature. Does anyone truly live according to their real self, or are we all merely performing roles in an artificial world? In Diogenes' time, Athens was a cultural and philosophical center, but also a place where deceit, ambition, and superficiality thrived. He observed that people lived according to preordained molds, behaving as society expected rather than being true to themselves. They chased fame, power, and material wealth, forgetting their intrinsic values. This led Diogenes to conclude that most people did not live as free individuals, but were instead enslaved by illusions of their own making. Diogenes' act of carrying a lantern in daylight was not just a mockery of human insincerity, but also a call for honesty and self-awareness. He reminded people that authenticity is not merely about speaking the truth, but about having the courage to live in alignment with one's core values, without being swayed by external influences. In today's world, his words remain just as relevant as social complexity grows, with the rise of social media and invisible societal pressures, making it increasingly difficult for individuals to be their true selves. Modern society encourages success, but it often equates success with inauthenticity. People get caught up in constructing images of themselves, creating a perfect version for social media or their careers, while losing sight of who they truly are. Are we genuinely ourselves, or are we living to please others? This is the very question Diogenes raised over 2,000 years ago, yet it remains just as thought-provoking today. Beyond criticism, Diogenes' words serve as a reminder of the importance of self-awareness. We cannot change the world if we do not first understand who we are. The search for an honest man is not solely Diogenes' quest, but a responsibility for each individual in their journey of self-discovery. We must ask ourselves, where do my true values lie? What truly matters to me? And am I living in accordance with those values? Diogenes' statement goes beyond individual philosophy. It presents a broader perspective on society. A truly good society is not one where people conform to artificial standards, but one where individuals can live authentically and be valued for who they genuinely are. If each person embraced self-awareness and the courage to be honest, society would see less hypocrisy, meaningless competition, and would evolve into a more humane place. Reflecting on the full meaning of this statement, it is evident that Diogenes was not just searching for an honest man in his own era. He was posing a challenge to all of us. He was not looking for a perfect individual, but for someone with the courage to be real, to abandon illusions, and to face themselves. This is a timeless philosophy, a powerful reminder that true freedom comes when we understand ourselves and refuse to let society define our worth. Perhaps the most important question is not whether Diogenes ever found an honest man, but whether we dare to become one. Diogenes was not only famous for his challenging philosophies, but also for his unwavering defiance against any form of authority. The phrase, "Alexander, step aside from my sunlight," was not merely a response, but a powerful declaration of absolute human freedom. In the context of his encounter with Alexander the Great, the most powerful man of his time, this statement clearly reflected Diogenes' philosophy. Power and fame hold no value when one has attained true freedom. Alexander the Great, one of history's greatest military strategists, was known for his ambition to expand his empire and control the world. When he approached Diogenes and offered to grant him anything he desired, Diogenes' reaction stunned everyone. Without a word of flattery or gratitude, he simply asked Alexander to move aside and stop blocking his sunlight. This was not a joke, but a profound philosophy. For Diogenes, there was nothing Alexander could offer that was more valuable than freedom and the warmth of the sun. This action was a direct rejection of the power and control that people so often crave. In Diogenes' eyes, wealth, status, or gifts from an emperor were meaningless if they overshadowed the true essence of human existence. He needed nothing but natural light, something that anyone could enjoy without power or possessions. This statement was not just a refusal. It was a powerful blow against the values that society worshipped: power and material wealth. Looking at modern society, this statement still holds deep meaning. Today, many people spend their lives chasing fame, status, and wealth, believing that these things will bring happiness and respect. However, Diogenes reminds us that such pursuits do not define a person's worth. True freedom lies in the ability to live according to one's own nature, rather than being enslaved by external ambitions. When people become obsessed with accumulating more while forgetting the value of simple existence, they unknowingly become prisoners of the very desires they chase. Diogenes' words are also a call for independence and self-sufficiency. While most people bow before power and seek recognition, Diogenes demonstrated that true freedom does not come from having more, but from needing less. He wanted nothing from Alexander, and did not change his attitude or way of life in response to his greatness. This reflects an unshakable spirit, one that is immune to external influences and firmly rooted in personal ideals. Moreover, this statement raises a profound question about how we perceive power. Throughout history, people have revered those in high positions, those who wield strength and control over others. But is power truly the measure of human value? Diogenes, with his simple life and disdain for authority, demonstrated that real worth is not found in the ability to dominate others, but in the ability to master oneself. Only when a person is no longer influenced by fame, wealth, or praise do they truly achieve freedom. Reflecting on the full meaning of this statement, it becomes clear that Diogenes was not merely rejecting a gift from an emperor. He was rejecting the entire system of values that his time, and even our time, holds dear. He reminds us that simplicity, freedom, and authenticity matter more than anything else. In a world full of social pressures and relentless competition, Diogenes' message remains timeless. Happiness is not found in what we possess, but in our ability to live freely according to our own nature, without the need for anyone's approval. A wealthy person is not the one who has much, but the one who needs little. Diogenes' philosophy of wealth is not about possessing great riches, but about mastering one's own desires. This statement reflects his core belief in liberation from material and psychological constraints while challenging the conventional definition of prosperity. While society measures wealth by accumulated possessions, Diogenes viewed it from an entirely different perspective. A person is truly wealthy when they are not enslaved by endless wants. In Diogenes' time, Athens was a thriving economic and cultural center where wealth was often equated with power and status. However, Diogenes rejected all such comforts. choosing to live in a wooden barrel rather than a grand house. He believed that material possessions were merely burdens that made people dependent, filling them with worries, fears, and a loss of their natural freedom. He advocated for a minimalist way of life, where happiness did not stem from what one had, but from the ability to need less. Modern society remains deeply influenced by the false belief that wealth guarantees happiness. People relentlessly chase money, assets, and prestige, believing that once they have enough, they will feel fulfilled. However, reality has proven that many wealthy individuals still live with anxiety, insecurity, and a constant sense of never having enough. In contrast, those who can control their desires and appreciate life's simple joys often find themselves more at peace and content. Diogenes' words emphasize that wealth is not something quantifiable by assets, but rather a state of mind. When a person is no longer controlled by desire, they achieve true freedom. This does not mean rejecting all material goods, but rather understanding what is truly necessary and avoiding the trap of becoming a slave to accumulation. A person may own little yet feel abundant if they are satisfied with what they have, while another may have vast riches but still feel impoverished if they are endlessly craving more. This idea also raises a fundamental question about how society functions. If everyone reduced their desires, would the world still be consumed by senseless competition for wealth and power? If people desired less, they could live with less stress, fewer worries, and enjoy the present instead of constantly chasing an uncertain future. This is a critical reminder in an era where consumerism and competition have become central to human existence. Ultimately, Diogenes' statement is not just a philosophical declaration, but a practical life philosophy. It challenges conventional notions of wealth and offers an alternative path. Simplicity, contentment, and self-control are the true keys to achieving genuine freedom. In a world increasingly dictated by materialism, Diogenes' lesson is more relevant than ever. Happiness is not about how much we have, but about our ability to live peacefully with what we already possess. Why worry about death when we are alive? It does not exist. When it arrives, we no longer exist. Diogenes was one of the philosophers with a bold and pragmatic approach to life, and this statement clearly reflects his perspective on death. Unlike many contemporary philosophers who worried about existence after death or placed their faith in supernatural beliefs, Diogenes viewed death with a simple and rational outlook. It is not something to fear, because when we are alive, it has not yet happened, and when it comes, we no longer have consciousness to be concerned about it. This viewpoint is not just a statement, but also a profound lesson on how humans should confront their own fears. Death is one of the greatest anxieties for humans. From ancient times to the present, the fear of death has given rise to countless philosophies, beliefs, and rituals designed to help people cope with the finiteness of life. But Diogenes dismissed all such unnecessary worries with a pragmatic argument. If death is inevitable, then worrying about it is pointless. He believed that people should not let the fear of death dominate their lives, as it would prevent them from fully enjoying the present. From the perspective of modern psychology, Diogenes' philosophy closely aligns with the principles of mindfulness-based therapy. What he expressed is essentially a form of accepting the present, instead of worrying about an uncontrollable future. People should focus on what is happening in the now. This approach not only helps reduce stress, but also enables individuals to live more fulfilling lives. Anxiety about death is essentially a fear without a solution, and instead of allowing it to consume the mind, the best approach is to accept it as an inevitable part of nature. Another significant aspect of this statement is its message about the futility of fear. Throughout history, humans have sought various ways to escape or lessen the fear of death, from establishing religions that promise an afterlife to pursuing scientific advancements in the hope of achieving immortality. But Diogenes pointed out that all these efforts stem from a fundamental misunderstanding. Death is not an event to be feared, but a state in which we no longer exist to be concerned about it. If death is simply the absence of consciousness, then there is no reason to worry about it in the first place. This philosophy can help people live more freely, without being haunted by the fear of death. We can make bolder decisions and dare to live as we truly wish, instead of being held back by vague fears. It can also help individuals focus on the real values of life, rather than worrying about an unavoidable end. Imagine a world where people are not dominated by the fear of death. Perhaps they would spend more time loving, creating, and cherishing truly meaningful moments. On a broader level, this statement by Diogenes is also a reminder of the futility of endless desires. Humans often strive to accumulate wealth, power, and fame as a way to counteract the finiteness of life. But ultimately, all of these pursuits become meaningless when death arrives. The relentless chase for external security only leads to greater anxiety and insecurity. Diogenes, with his simple way of living, demonstrated a different approach. Instead of fearing death, focus on living a free and fulfilling life. In conclusion, this statement by Diogenes is not just a philosophical viewpoint, but also a practical lesson on how to live. It reminds people that fear is not real unless we allow it to control us. Death is not something to worry about. Rather, wasting life due to fear is what truly should be avoided. When people understand this, they can let go of invisible burdens, live more fully and meaningfully, and appreciate each moment they have. Wise people learn from everything and everyone. Average people learn from experience, and fools already know everything. Diogenes' philosophy was not only centered on personal freedom, but also served as a strong critique of intellectual arrogance. This statement reflects his perspective on learning and awareness, categorizing people into three types: the wise, the average, and the foolish. He emphasized that those who are truly intelligent are those who continuously keep an open mind and learn from everything around them. In contrast, fools are those who believe they already know everything, refusing to acquire new knowledge and thereby limiting themselves in ignorance. At a deeper level, this statement highlights a fundamental truth in philosophy and education. Knowledge is limitless. Wise individuals understand that the world is constantly changing, that there is always something new to discover, and that every person they meet can teach them something valuable. They do not only learn from books, but also from life experiences, from mistakes, and from the experiences of others. This intellectual humility allows them to continuously grow and improve themselves. Conversely, those who are overly confident in their knowledge are the ones most prone to making mistakes. When a person believes they know everything, they lose the motivation to seek more knowledge. This leads to stagnation in thinking, stubbornness in perception, and ultimately, regression in action. A fool is not someone incapable of learning, but rather someone who refuses to learn. It is this arrogance that traps them in a cycle of ignorance and error. Looking at reality, we can see that this statement still holds true in modern society. In the age of information technology, knowledge is no longer limited by geography or social class, but intellectual arrogance remains one of the biggest barriers to personal development. A wise person will take every opportunity to expand their understanding, while a less intelligent person will easily accept what they already know without questioning or seeking deeper truths. The difference between success and failure, between progress and stagnation, lies in one's attitude toward learning. Diogenes' statement also carries significant meaning in leadership and management. A great leader is not someone who believes they know everything, but rather someone who listens, who learns from employees, from partners, and from real-world situations. They recognize that knowledge is constantly evolving, and that only intellectual humility enables them to make sound decisions. On the other hand, arrogant leaders, who believe they are always right, often make the gravest mistakes because they refuse to consider others' opinions. From a personal development standpoint, this philosophy serves as an essential reminder of lifelong learning. To become truly intelligent, individuals must cultivate a lifelong learning mindset. This is not limited to formal education, but extends to learning from real-life experiences, from failures, and from everyday conversations. Only when people maintain an open mind can they continue to grow both personally and socially. Overall, this statement by Diogenes is not merely an observation about learning, but also a wake-up call for anyone seeking intellectual and personal growth. It emphasizes that intelligence is not measured by how much knowledge a person possesses, but by their attitude toward learning. A truly wise person never stops seeking knowledge, while a fool always believes they already know enough. And that is precisely the difference between those who succeed and those who are left behind. I throw bones to dogs, but I also throw sarcasm to fools. This statement by Diogenes clearly reflects his sharp and satirical philosophical style. He did not just use words to teach, but also employed irony and provocative actions to expose the true nature of human beings. With this remark, Diogenes compared fools to dogs, ready to bite and fight over anything thrown their way without thinking. At the same time, he emphasized that instead of wasting time arguing with those incapable of reasoning, he would throw sarcasm at them, as it was the only thing they could comprehend. Diogenes was not a philosopher who taught in a conventional manner. He did not write books or organize lectures like Socrates or Plato. Instead, he used provocative actions and words to challenge the established beliefs of society. With this statement, he pointed out that some people never truly listen or learn, but simply react instinctively and thoughtlessly. Just as dogs fight over a worthless bone, fools argue over things they do not truly understand. This remark also reflects Diogenes' attitude toward futile debates. He believed that not everyone was worth engaging in dialogue with, and that ignorance could not be changed through reasoning. Those who refuse to expand their minds, who do not listen, and who lack the ability to think critically, will never be able to grasp true knowledge. Therefore, rather than trying to educate them, Diogenes chose to use sarcasm to highlight the pointlessness of engaging with those unwilling to learn. From a social perspective, this statement also carries a profound message about selecting who to communicate and learn from. Not everyone is open-minded or conscious enough to absorb knowledge. A wise person knows to invest their time and energy in those capable of understanding, rather than wasting it on fruitless conversations. In today's world, this truth is even more apparent, as meaningless arguments are widespread, from social media to daily life, where many people speak just to assert their egos rather than genuinely seeking the truth. From another angle, this statement can also serve as a self-reflection for each of us. It poses the question, do we truly listen and think critically when receiving knowledge, or do we merely react instinctively without analysis? In life, people often act emotionally rather than logically, driven by biases, emotions, and misguided beliefs. Diogenes reminds us that only those who develop critical thinking can transcend ignorance and cultivate wisdom. This statement by Diogenes is not just mere sarcasm, but also an important lesson on how to approach knowledge and dialogue in life. It emphasizes that not everyone can accept the truth, and that wisdom lies in knowing who is worthy of sharing one's intellect with. In a world filled with endless debates and voices distorted by prejudice, Diogenes' words remain relevant. Use knowledge wisely, and do not waste it on those who fail to appreciate it. People have 2 eyes and 2 ears, but only 1 mouth, so they should see and hear more than they speak. This statement by Diogenes conveys an important lesson about observation, listening, and self-restraint in speech. He emphasized that humans are born with 2 eyes and 2 ears, but only 1 mouth, indicating that we should observe and listen more rather than focusing solely on speaking. This philosophy is not merely a piece of advice on communication, but also a profound perspective on how people should approach knowledge and understanding. As a philosopher of cynicism, Diogenes highly valued self-awareness and self-control. He believed that people often make mistakes when they speak excessively without truly understanding what they are saying. While words can easily be distorted or misunderstood, observation and listening enable people to gain a more accurate perception of reality. Wisdom does not come from excessive self-expression, but from carefully acquiring information and thinking before speaking. Modern society is a clear demonstration of the truth in this statement. In the era of media and social networks, people tend to speak more than they listen. Every day, millions of individuals express personal opinions on online platforms, but not all of them truly understand what they are saying. This results in countless pointless debates, where everyone wants to assert their views without taking the time to listen and learn from others. The imbalance between speaking and listening not only leads to errors, but also diminishes the ability to absorb new knowledge. Diogenes' statement also holds great value in leadership and communication. A good leader is not someone who only gives orders and speaks a lot, but someone who observes, listens to others' opinions, and makes informed decisions based on gathered information. Those who listen well often earn trust and respect because they do not just focus on expressing their views, but also know how to receive and evaluate the perspectives of others. Moreover, this philosophy serves as a crucial reminder of how people should approach knowledge. Learning does not come only from books or theories, but also from real-life experiences and conversations with others. When people actively listen, they can absorb valuable lessons that they might otherwise overlook if they only speak without observing. Diogenes emphasized that instead of rushing to express oneself, people should learn to view the world objectively and thoughtfully. This statement also highlights the importance of restraint in communication. In life, there are moments when silence is more valuable than words. Silence can be a sign of understanding, respect, and wisdom. Those who know how to control their speech often avoid unnecessary misunderstandings and demonstrate intellectual self-discipline. Balancing seeing, hearing, and speaking is an essential art that helps individuals develop wisdom and build stronger relationships. In conclusion, Diogenes' statement is not just advice on communication, but also a timeless life philosophy. It underscores that observation and listening are the keys to absorbing knowledge, understanding the world, and behaving wisely. In a world where everyone wants to voice their opinions, knowing when to listen and reflect is a crucial skill that allows people to attain true understanding and lead a more meaningful life. Looking back at the philosophies left behind by Diogenes, we cannot deny their depth and practicality. Though often conveyed through sarcasm, his words hold timeless value, raising essential questions about how people live, think, and act in society. He did not just challenge social norms, but also inspired people toward personal freedom, independence, and self-awareness. The common thread in Diogenes' philosophies is the pursuit of truth through simplicity and the rejection of unnecessary constraints. He taught that true wealth is not found in material possessions, but in one's ability to control desires. He reminded us that power is not a measure of human value, and that true intelligence is marked by a willingness to learn, rather than complacency with what one already knows. These are all essential lessons that modern individuals can apply to lead more meaningful lives. In an increasingly complex world where people chase material wealth, status, and curated online personas, Diogenes' philosophy stands as a powerful reminder. Live simply, authentically, and freely in your own way. He lived a life unbound by rules, unaffected by power or fame, and it was precisely this distinction that made him an eternal symbol of Western philosophy. Diogenes' philosophy does not demand that people abandon everything, but instead encourages each individual to question, are we truly ourselves? Do we dare to face the truth? Or are we still living within illusions imposed by society? Are we listening and observing more than we speak? Or are we merely expressing opinions without real contemplation? These questions can help each person find the right path for themselves. Diogenes' teachings remain highly relevant in modern society, not just because of his boldness, but because they reflect the human condition in a brutally honest way. In a world full of pretense, perhaps the most important lesson we can learn from him is the courage to live truthfully, the wisdom to avoid being consumed by superficial values, and the freedom to remain unbound by anything but ourselves.